Welcome to the Aleph-Bet Moment. I'm Greg Witter with Ephraim's Cry and the Hebraic Mindset Study Series. This is more than a study of ancient Hebrew letters. It is a journey back to the language, culture, and covenant foundation through which much of Scripture was revealed. Together, we'll explore the Hebrew Aleph-Bet, the Paleo Hebrew pictographs, and the biblical themes woven throughout the Word of Elohim from Bereshit to Revelation, not to create doctrine, but to better understand the doctrine that is already established by Scripture. Ancient letters, eternal truth, covenant understanding. Let's begin today's Aleph-Bet Moment. Before we begin examining the individual letters of the Hebrew Aleph-Bet, we must first answer an important question. Why does the Aleph-Bet matter? Why should we spend time studying ancient Hebrew letters? Why should we care about pictographs, word pictures, and ancient forms of writing? Is this merely an academic exercise, a historical curiosity, an archaeological interest, or is there something deeper taking place? The answer is found in understanding how Yahuah chose to communicate his word. The Aleph-Bet is more than an alphabet. It is the foundation of the language through which much of Scripture was originally given. It provides insight into covenant thinking, kingdom understanding, biblical context, and Hebraic patterns of thought. Today, we establish the foundation upon which the rest of this series will be built. Now, notice the central statement of this teaching: understanding the language, understanding the covenant, understanding the kingdom. That statement summarizes the purpose of this entire series. The Hebrew language is not the source of truth. Scripture is. The letters are not the authority. Scripture is. Yet understanding the language helps us better understand the message. And understanding the message helps us better understand the covenant. And understanding the covenant helps us better understand the kingdom. The goal is never the letters themselves. The goal is the message the letters communicate. The information panel tells us exactly why this study matters. The foundation principle states, understand the language, understand the covenant, understand the kingdom. That order is important. Language provides communication. Communication reveals covenant. Covenant reveals kingdom. The further we move from the original context, the easier it becomes to misunderstand what Scripture is saying or trying to tell us. The closer we move towards the original context, the more clearly we see the message. The kingdom connection reminds us of something critical here. Yahushua is the Word made flesh. The Scriptures testify of him. The goal of biblical study is not information. The goal is transformation. The goal is to know the Father, to understand his kingdom, to walk in covenant, to follow the Messiah. The Aleph-Bet is valuable because it helps illuminate that message. But the message remains greater than the letters serve the word. The word does not serve the letters. Ancient letters matter because they preserve historical context. The Paleo Hebrew symbols reveal the earliest forms of written Hebrew. These symbols often contain pictographic meanings that help illustrate the concepts found throughout Scripture. The pictures themselves are not doctrine. The pictures are illustrations. They help illuminate what Scripture is saying. The authority always remains Scripture. However, these illustrations often help us visualize truths that are already present in the text. The ancient letters become teaching tools that illuminate covenant concepts for us. Truth never changes. Cultures change, languages change, governments change, traditions change. Truth does not. Scripture reveals eternal truth. The Aleph-Bet matters because it helps us look more closely at how that truth was communicated. The letters do not create truth. They illuminate truth. The word of Yahuah remains the authority from the beginning to the end. The Bible is a covenant document. From Genesis to Revelation, Scripture reveals covenant relationship, promises, responsibilities, blessings, warnings, redemption, restoration. The Aleph-Bet often reflects covenant themes woven throughout the language itself. Understanding covenant helps us move beyond religion and into relationship, beyond ritual and into obedience, beyond information and into transformation. One of the greatest problems in modern biblical interpretation is the loss of context. People often read verses while ignoring audience, history, purpose, language. Context matters. When context is removed, misunderstanding often follows. The Aleph-Bet helps us reconnect with the world in which the Scriptures were originally communicated. Not to replace Scripture, but to better understand it. This principle is critical. Before asking what something symbolizes, we must understand what it does. Before asking what it represents, we must understand its function. Many errors occur when symbolism is separated from purpose. Hebraic thinking often begins with function. What does it do? How does it work? What purpose does it serve? Only then do we explore deeper meaning. Function before philosophy, purpose before speculation, Scripture before assumption. Biblical study was never intended to remain intellectual. Truth must become action. Knowledge must become obedience. Learning must become living. Application through covenant means we live what we learn, walk in alignment, build faith, apply truth daily. The goal is not merely understanding. The goal is faithful obedience. This panel summarizes the entire purpose of the series. The Aleph-Bet is more than an alphabet. It is part of the blueprint through which revelation was communicated. Each letter carries historical significance, cultural significance, covenant significance. When we understand the foundation, Scripture often comes alive in new ways. Not because truth changed, but because our understanding increased. The 5 pillars provide the foundation for the entire series: truth, understanding, wisdom, growth, obedience. Truth gives us something solid to stand on. Understanding reveals what was hidden. Wisdom teaches us how to apply truth correctly. Growth transforms us into what we are becoming. Obedience turns knowledge into covenant living. These 5 pillars will guide every letter we study. As we move through the Aleph-Bet, remember this: we are not studying letters for the sake of letters. We are not chasing secret codes. We are not inventing doctrine from pictographs. We are seeking to better understand the language, the covenant, and the kingdom revealed throughout Scripture. The letters serve as illustrations. Scripture remains the authority. The message remains the focus. The kingdom remains the goal. Understanding the language, understanding the covenant, understanding the kingdom, understanding the foundation. That is the foundation. That is the purpose. That is the framework for everything that follows. The letters will teach us many things, but before we study any individual letter, we must first understand why the Aleph-Bet matters. Because when the foundation is solid, everything built upon it becomes stronger. This has been the Aleph-Bet Moment. Today we establish why the Hebrew Aleph-Bet matters. But before we begin examining the individual letters, we must first understand the language itself. In our next teaching, we'll discover why Hebrew is unlike any other language on earth, why it is often called the language of creation, and why its words communicate far more than simple sounds. Because until we understand the language, we cannot fully understand the letters. I'm Greg Witter, and until next time, study, apply, grow, share, and repeat. Thank you for joining me for this Aleph-Bet Moment. I hope this presentation has given you a new appreciation for the beauty, depth, and covenant message woven throughout the Hebrew language. If you'd like to continue your journey and follow along with our study tools, I've created the Aleph-Bet Restoration Bundle. It includes a complete Restoring the Language of Creation study guide, the Paleo Hebrew Covenant Aleph-Bet chart, expanded letter studies, covenant applications, Hebrew word studies, prophetic themes, and additional teaching resources designed to help you study the scriptures from a Hebraic mindset. Simply scan the QR code or visit ephraimscry.com to learn more. There's also more in the description for this video. My prayer is that these resources encourage you to study more deeply, understand more clearly, continue discovering the remarkable testimony revealed from Aleph to Tav. I'm Greg Witter with Ephraim's Cry and the Hebraic Mindset Study Series. Until next time, study, learn, apply, grow, share, and repeat.